If you're watching this video right now, chances are you've probably scrolled all over social media looking at these insanely aesthetic physiques wondering to yourself, how do I get one? Is it my training, dieting, genetics, or even steroids? Well, it's time to put the needle down because I'll be showing you how I was able to build an aesthetic physique while only being 16 years old with less than 3 years of training. I'll try to make this as short as possible without leaving any key details. So first, we need to identify what an aesthetic physique really is. An aesthetic physique is just a body that people find attractive. So what does this mean? Having an aesthetic physique is all about proportions, which means you have to have the right muscles in the right areas which will make you appear more masculine. And if you look at all these popular social media influencers, all of their bodies have something in common. They have a wide frame. So what muscles make an aesthetic physique? Well, we all know that the shoulders are a crucial part, so the next muscle group would be your arms, abdominals, and lats. Remember, we're trying to make the widest frame possible, so the wider your frame is, the smaller your waist will appear. Having big arms is crucial when it comes to having a nice looking physique, because when you wear t-shirts, the arms are the first thing that people notice. The lats are just as crucial as your arms because your lats are what help you develop a V-taper from the back without having to flex. And the abs, well, they don't really need an explanation. And so what should your training look like? Taking a sample split for my men's aesthetics program, we'll be running a 5-day split, with most of the volume targeting your shoulders, lats, and arms. And so on the first upper body day, we'll be doing 2 lat isolation exercises, 1 side raise, and 2 arm isolations. And so on this day, I would choose a vertical pull down and a neutral grip horizontal row. Now there's only so much variation you could do with side raises, but my all-time favorite right now has to be the unilateral cable lateral raise. If you set the cable just around hip height, then all of the tension will be in the stretch position. And for my arm exercises, it's just an alternation of biceps and triceps. And so what you should be looking for is just any exercise that has a good deep stretch at the bottom. And most of the time, you should be training these with cables. And now on the next upper body day, we'll be focusing on our shoulders. Remember, we don't only want to grow the side delts, we need to grow the front delts through vertical presses. Now, I will say that most people do have overdeveloped front delts, so I would normally go for a high incline bench press. This way, while you're isolating your front delts, you'll be also hitting that upper shelf, which will also give you a more masculine look. Now, the upper chest does play a role in having a more aesthetic physique, so you should be also including some incline presses. And on this day, I would do another side raise, but this time a different variation, and then 2 more arm exercises. Now, the reason why we have so much exercise variation is to ensure that we don't plateau on any exercise, because doing the same exercise 2 to 3 times per week will most likely fatigue you too quickly. And if you fatigue too quickly, then you can't progressive overload when you haven't recovered yet. And on the final upper body day, we'll be doing 2 more lat isolation exercises, 1 rear delt fly, and 2 arm exercises. Now, for each of these exercises, I would normally go anywhere from 2 to 3 sets. Since we are training to prioritize these muscle groups, we should also be dedicating most of our volume to these muscles. Now, let me give you a run through of all my favorite exercises for each muscle group. For the front delts, any overhead pressing will do even though they are probably getting enough stimulus from benching. Then my favorite side raise exercise has to be the unilateral cable lateral raise. The cable's resistance profile is the most consistent out of any other side raise variation, but keep in mind these are just a bitch to progress on. But if you don't have access to cables, my next recommendation would be a lean-in dumbbell lateral raise. Unlike a regular lateral raise, all of the tension is at the top, but leaning on an inclined bench, all of a sudden all the stretch is now in the bottom. And for the rear delts, you can never go wrong with a reverse pec deck fly, but your rear delts will also get enough stimulus from mid-back rows. And now onto the lats, my 2 favorite vertical pulls are the lat pull down and the weighted pull-up. I will say that pull-ups is more of a strength exercise rather than a hypertrophy exercise, but if you do pull-ups, you automatically have so much more aura. And keep in mind that when you do pull-ups, it's not necessarily supposed to be a feel-good exercise. And for the last 2 back exercises, I'd go for a neutral grip cable row and a lat cable pullover. The goal of these exercises are to get an insane stretch and not so much of a contraction. And for the arms, honestly just pick any bicep exercise that has a good stretch and 2 tricep exercises that force you to have a high elbow and a press down. But for the biceps, my 2 all-time favorite exercises has to be the cable Bayesian curl and the dumbbell preacher curl. And for the triceps, you can never go wrong with an overhead extension and a tricep pushdown. But honestly, any other pressing exercise works. You can do close grip bench press or a JM press. And earlier in the video, I did say that the upper chest does have some role in an aesthetic physique, so my favorite upper chest isolation exercises would be an incline dumbbell press and an incline chest press. The different aesthetics between the upper chest and the mid chest is that the mid chest doesn't actually fill out your chest frame. Incline presses target the whole chest itself. However, when you do a chest exercise that targets more of the lower chest, it won't give your upper pecs enough stimulus. So if I were to target the chest, I would mainly kick off my workout with an upper chest press. And so this is what the split would look like. And on all of these exercises, you should be taking them all the way to failure. However, I would say that the only exercise that you shouldn't be taking to failure is probably the pull-ups because pull-ups are just fatiguing in general. And in my opinion, as long as you enjoy doing the exercises that you choose, you'll make gains no matter what. Unless you're doing fucking Bosu ball squats. But when you are picking exercise, keep this in mind. It has high tension through the entire rep, it's easy to overload, and most importantly, you enjoy doing it. But other than training, it's a no-brainer that you focus on your diet. As I mentioned, the abs and the waist contribute heavily on an aesthetic physique. Now obviously you can build your abs in the gym, but they'll only be revealed in the kitchen. And this also applies with your waist. In order to have a smaller waist, you need to have less body fat. So the answer is to just eat in a calorie deficit. I know what it is, you know what it is. All you do is eat less calories than your maintenance. So typically the healthy range is around 200 to 400 calories in a deficit. And any more than that, you'll probably just be depleted with energy and your workouts won't feel good. And obviously, you can still get away with achieving a leaner physique through a lean bulk. Personally, I've achieved this physique without having to cut down once. All you have to do is make sure you have a consistent weight gain each week of around 0.5 pounds per week. Not only will you build more muscle, but you'll also reduce the risk of gaining excess fat. And so after applying all of these steps, will you look like David Lade? Absolutely not. But as long as you train hard, even the skinniest or biggest physiques can always result in satisfaction. And if you want a more in-depth program, definitely try checking out my men's aesthetics program linked in the description. But with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, that took so long to film.